Good morning, afternoon or evening wherever you are. I'm Paul Clark and welcome to my studio. And now, what have I got for you lovely peeps today? Well, it's another one from Margot's Saturday Challenges from our Facebook group, which is wittily called There's Not Mushroom on This Toadstool. Not mushroom on there. Anyway, so we're going to be having a go at this lovely little woodland scene. And don't forget to hang about to the end because we've got some beautiful paintings from the Facebook group for you to check out. So come and join me and we'll paint this step by step together. So just before we start, I've got a very short video. It's only about a minute long of a really exciting event that we've got planned for September 2024. So if you don't want to watch it, you can just move forward about a minute. See you soon. We are delighted to be hosting our very own 7-day watercolour retreat at the award-winning farmhouse at Blackadon Farm, set on the edge of the beautiful Dartmoor National Park. Just open the back gate and step out into the open moorland, into the breathtaking ruggedness of this stunning part of South Devon. With its tranquil streams and rivers and freely grazing cattle, there is always something interesting to paint. Both Margot and Paul will be taking classes with sessions out in the fresh air as well as back in the classroom, with first-class caterers coming in daily to prepare all our meals suitable for all diets. Accommodation is of an extremely high standard and varied options can suit most needs. So this retreat we've organised ourselves, so there are no expensive operators' fees. For full details and itinerary, please see link below in the description box. We'd love to see you there. Okay, so for today's materials, my paper is some Winsor & Newton Professional. It's 100% cotton, cold press finish, and it's on a block so it won't need stretching, but any decent watercolour paper will do. My colours today are cadmium yellow, cadmium orange, burnt sienna, burnt umber, cobalt blue, French ultramarine, some phthalo green, or you could use viridian green, and some Payne's grey. And just 2 brushes from my range, a number 12 and number 6 round. So I've based today's painting on this reference photo from Pixabay, and then I've done a quick sketch for composition. And here is the finished pencil sketch. Now don't draw too much or it will inhibit what you do with your brush. And this one, as ever, is free to download from my website, link in the description below. Off we go! And pre-wetting with clean water all the background, carefully going around the mushrooms. And I'm using my number 12 brush. Then straight in wet in wet. And I'm using my normal mixture of cadmium yellow and cobalt blue for all my greens. Just letting all the wet paint mix on the paper. Bluey greens, yellowy greens, and everything in between. Now here, for a bit of unexpected madness, I'm chucking in a touch of phthalo green, or you could use viridian. Now my intention is to create quite a semi-abstract background with nothing really defined. I'm dropping in here some French ultramarine, and of course, being a very granulating colour, it should create some interesting texture, especially when used with lots of water. Splattering here and just generally having fun. What's the worst that can happen? Now this dark value here could represent some trees, but I'm not really being too precious about it. Let the paint decide where it goes. Don't fiddle, just let it do its thing. And a few blobs of clean water here to hopefully get a few back runs. More splats here, and then I'm using my number 6 brush to perhaps give the impression of a few random branches. Next, for a light sprinkle of table salt to hopefully get some interesting texture. Give it about 10 minutes and we should get some fairy dust. Oops, just missed this little bit here. Next for the foreground, and same again, lots of very wet washes, all going in wet and wet. But this time perhaps I'm going to add in a touch of orange and some burnt umber. Now this dark value, I'm using quite a strong creamy consistency. Now remember, washes you drop in must have at least the same or thicker consistency than the wash you're painting into. If it's weaker, with more water, then you'll just get a back run. Now I can't list every mix I'm using here, or it'll take me forever. So it's a good opportunity to experiment with your colour mixing. Okay, so now we need to let this totally dry, and the best I could do is a Waitrose mushroom cutter soup. Okay, so now for the mushrooms, using my number 12 brush and a good watery mix over all three. And while still wet, dropping in some burnt sienna. Then lifting out with a damp brush a few little highlights on the end. And even a little bit of tissue works well. Next, while hopefully still wet, dropping in the shadow side with some burnt umber. Just lifting out that little bit here. So while I'm waiting for the mushrooms to dry, I can now work on the foreground horse chestnuts. Starting with a very watery cadmium yellow, I'm going to be dropping in quite a few colours wet and wet. So I'll just list them below. Okay, so now I've switched to my smaller number 6 brush. Okay, so I haven't quite got the brightness of the yellow of the mushrooms as on the photo. And this is one of the things I love about watercolour, is that you can just simply add a watery glaze over top. So I'm just starting by painting in the front two mushrooms, and my intention is also to strengthen the shadow area on the right. Tissue again to lift out the highlights. And then when that's dry, I'm doing exactly the same with this big fella here. Back to the foreground, and again I'll list all the colours I'm using below. Here on the leaves, a slightly thicker consistency of the same colour. So while each section is drying, I'm flipping back and forth between the horse chestnuts and the mushrooms, and using my number 6 brush here. Always try to paint with as few brush strokes as possible. Too much scrubbing can disturb the dry washes below and give you some ugly marks. Okay, so now for these horse chestnuts. A very strong, deep colour mix here. Then cleaning off my brush and lifting out this highlight. Much more natural looking than using masking fluid. Okay, now for a bit of trivia. So if I said to you, do you fancy a game of conkers? Would you know what I'm talking about? Now I know the Brits would, but I'm not sure if this is a worldwide thing. Now I expect it's probably been banned for health and safety reasons. Now it dates back from the mid-1800s, and what you basically do is find yourself a good hard conker. Now some cunning players would even bake their conker in the oven for extra hardness. You'd then drill a hole and tie a piece of string through the middle with a knot at the end. You would then get 3 attempts to smash your opponent's conker to smithereens. Now inevitably it would result in serious hand injuries, but you know, we were brought up tough in those days. Then, depending on how many victories you had, your prize conker would then be known as a oneer, a twoer or a threer, and so forth. Now I'm sure in my distant memory I had a 5er, but perhaps that's just my imagination. Anyway, let me know in the comments below if this is a game you played in your part of the world. I'd love to know. Okay, so back to the mushrooms, and I'm re-wetting the stalk and then dropping in the colours wet in wet to get some good soft and natural blends. A few little details on the conkers and the leaves. Now they look a bit like they're floating in space, so I'm going to anchor them down with some dark shadows, wetting the edges to soften them into the background. Right, so the transition of the stalks into the bank is a little touch obvious. So with a damp tissue, just blending in to get some nice soft edges. And also in a few areas here in the background. So, nearly there, but I want to do something with the background. Now, I've had a few of you request doing a demo on the bokeh effect, or bokeh effect, however it's pronounced. Now, I'm not really a big fan because it really is a photographic effect, where the photographer will put the background out of focus to create some soft circles. So I'm not really sure if they belong in a watercolour painting. Besides, it's become extremely popular in all watercolour tutorials, and there must be at least 2 million videos showing how to do it. But, as you asked nicely, I'll give it a go. So to start with, I've got a fairly stiff bristle brush, the sort of thing that you might use for acrylic painting. Then, taking a plastic circle template and a damp brush and slowly scrubbing the centre. Now the harder you press, the more colour you will lift out and the brighter the circle will become. And then just lift out the damp paint with a tissue. Now alternate the sizes as well and place them in some of the areas where the light is bursting through. And a few overlapping circles can also work well too. Actually, I have to admit, it's quite effective, but don't tell anyone. Right, final details with a yellow-green pastel pencil for the spiky bits here. And some of the further grass details. Then some gooey white gouache straight from the tube for some extra bright highlights. And that's it. All done in just about 3 hours. Well, I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did, and you'll give it a go. Just remember, make it your own and have fun, guy. Anyway, coming up now are some wonderful paintings from the Facebook group, so please check those out. Great selection of mushrooms and toadstools. And don't forget, if you want any more information on any of our holidays, retreats or workshops, please look down in the description below. And as always, please don't forget to like, subscribe if you haven't already. It is free. Leave a comment. I do read every single one, although I can't reply to them all. World's slowest typist. And I'll look forward to seeing you all again next week for another Watercolour Wednesday. Take care now, everyone. Bye for now.